The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications, connecting Virginians to their government. We're so pleased to have Senator John Edwards with us today. Senator Edwards, good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Woody. Always glad to be here.
Great. Roanoke City is doing well, and the Valley is doing well, is it not?
It is. We took a hit the other day when Norfolk Southern announced that 400 or 500 people would be leaving. So that's not good. But at the same time, we have a lot of things that are happening in Roanoke. I just talked to someone the other day that their daughter grew up in Roanoke, lives in Northern Virginia now, and he said she came to Roanoke and said, "Roanoke is happening. Things are going on."
She really misses it.
Yeah,
huh?
Great restaurants now, and just a lot of activity downtown. So yeah, it's an exciting place to live.
And of course, rail is becoming more important.
Oh, let's talk about rail. Yeah, we're getting Amtrak. It's coming in a couple of years. It got started because in 2011 I got funding to start a connector bus, a SmartWay connector bus that goes from Roanoke to Lynchburg, $4 per person, connects you right up to the brand new Amtrak train that started in '09 that Tim Kaine got started. The Amtrak train goes all the way to Boston, and on weekends the connector bus starts in Blacksburg and comes through Salem and then to the Civic Center. You can take your car to the Civic Center right now. Park it there, get on the Amtrak train, get the bus, connect to Amtrak, go to Boston, and come back, and a week later, your car's still there.
Wow.
And for free. And my wife and I went to Boston for a conference last October, and people are really happy with the way the connector bus has worked out. But the main reason for the connector bus is to show to Amtrak that we have a market. We thought we would get maybe 12 or 15 people per day on the connector bus. They're now about 50 on average, 50 passengers on average on the connector bus. And Amtrak says that's what they need. And so Amtrak is coming. They're already making the improvements on the trackage and doing other things to, they were looking at building a passenger station in downtown Roanoke now for the Amtrak train. And after Amtrak comes in the next couple of years, the plans are to move it to the New River Valley. We're already looking at a depot, some kind of passenger station in the New River Valley, either in Christiansburg or Radford or somewhere in that neighborhood. So a lot of progress is being made. The idea of bringing Amtrak will be a huge boost to the economy. For tourists, it will give people in the Roanoke area an opportunity to access the Northeast Corridor. The train is the Amtrak train. Everybody who takes it just loves it. So I'm very excited about bringing Amtrak to Roanoke, and something I've been working on for a long time. So I'm very excited about that.
It's coming to fruition.
It's absolutely coming to fruition. It's taken a while. We've been working on it for an awful long time, but that connector bus is really the spark that encouraged Amtrak to say, let's go to Roanoke. So they're coming, and Amtrak's very excited about it.
Great. Well, something else that's doing well is the Roanoke Higher Education Center. I understand next year will be its 15th anniversary.
That's right. We're celebrating the 15th anniversary of the Roanoke Higher Education Center next August. There are 12 colleges and universities, workforce training programs at the Higher Education Center. It's designed to provide the third and fourth year of college, not competing with the community college, and also graduate programs. We have a number of master's and even a PhD program. We have, for example, 3 MBA programs at the Roanoke Higher Education Center. I've had more people tell me they could not have gotten an MBA had it not been in Roanoke, because they're a little bit older, they have a job, and they have families, and you can't afford to take off for 2 years and go somewhere and get a master's in business administration. But having it in Roanoke, downtown on evenings and weekends, has been perfect for an awful lot of people. And just a few years ago, we rehabbed the buildings on Henry Street next to the main Higher Education Center building, and this was the center for for many years, many decades, of the African American cultural and economic life in Roanoke, and it had been vacant for a number of decades. But we rehab those buildings, preserve the buildings, and Virginia Western is offering a Culinary Arts Institute there, which has been extremely successful. About 180 students per semester at the Culinary Arts Institute, and we got $5 million last year to double the size because it's growing dramatically. It is enabling students to get an associate's degree and not just learn how to cook. Cooking is a part of it, of course, but also learning how to run a business. You know, the financing, the management, and all the other things that go into running a business. I've talked to some of the students, and they love it. One gentleman told me he's planning to start his own bakery in his basement, and then branch out from there and eventually start his own bakery and maybe his own restaurant. And others can be executive chefs. And I've talked to a lot of the restaurant owners in downtown Roanoke, and they hire the students who graduate from the Culinary Arts Institute at the Roanoke Higher Education Center. And so we're very excited about that. It's a big boost to downtown Roanoke to have really a quality school to teach not just how to cook, but also how to run a restaurant.
Yeah, I've seen some amazing numbers in terms of increases in salary that people have been rewarded with after they finish that higher educational institute. Talk to us about that. It has a huge economic impact.
It really does. The study we did a few years ago showed the Roanoke Higher Education Center has a $32 million economic impact in the region. But the biggest thing is when people get a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a certificate or some kind of a complete a program, the studies show their income goes up fairly significantly, $15,000, $20,000 a year, for example, in many cases. A teacher getting a licensing certificate, for example, can get a higher income. A master's in business administration, for example, command a higher income. So it's not just good in terms of providing workforce training generally for people, but to give them better wages, better salaries, increasing the income. And so all the studies show it's been very successful as an economic development tool across the board. Workforce training, yes, but also bachelor's and master's degrees and even a PhD program that we have there. So it's been very successful across the board, and I think it's one of those things that's given Roanoke a real boost in terms of economic development.
And of course, the relationship you have with Virginia Tech there with the Carilion School. Talk to us about the importance of that.
Well, I tell you, the connection between Carilion and Virginia Tech has been tremendous, and we started a Virginia Tech Carilion School of Medicine. The first class graduated a year ago. The second class will be graduating this year, about 42 students per class. That has been a tremendous benefit to the region, but also the opportunity of bringing in some quality medical students who want to live and continue to practice in our region. And one of the things they look at is when students apply is, would you want to spend the rest of your life in Western Virginia? And the quality of these students is tremendous. I've seen figures of, I don't know how many, a couple thousand or so, I'm not sure the exact figure, applicants for 42 places. I mean, it is a tremendous, the quality of the students is extraordinary.
And that's not only domestic applicants, but students from around the world.
Around the world. But these are people who want to, not only are they extremely well qualified, they could have gone to medical school in many, many other places, but they want to live here and make the Roanoke region our life, their life, and raise their families there. In addition, Virginia Tech and Carilion have a research institute they put together. Now that's been a huge boost as well. They brought in a research scientist from Houston who's an expert in researching the brain, Michael Friedlander, and he's brought in 170 research scientists throughout the country to study the brain. And the kind of research they're doing is nationally ranked research in terms of understanding how the brain works. So the Research Institute, as well as the School of Medicine, has really put Roanoke on the map.
Well, that has really positioned your district and that region quite well as the state continues to face sequestration. Talk to us about that.
Well, sequestration is, what Congress did several years ago. Nobody wanted it, but it was a compromise. Now they can't get out of it. Sequestration means they're going to cut across the board federal funding. It's hurt Virginia particularly bad because Virginia has a lot of, Northern Virginia especially, federal agencies. And of course the Hampton Roads area, major naval, the Atlantic Fleet is located in Norfolk. And so the fact that they're cut across the board has really had a big impact on the economy of Virginia. In fact, we could be doing a whole lot better if we did not have sequestration. And what we're trying to do is diversify the economy, so we're not as dependent on the federal government. I was talking to a congressman the other day. I said to him, partly in jest, but partly seriously, if we could just build another aircraft carrier down at the Newport News shipbuilding and dry dock area, a new aircraft carrier would solve the problem. And he said, yeah, you're right. So I'm hoping Congress says, let's build a new aircraft carrier down there, because it would help the economy of Virginia tremendously. But more seriously, yes, we have to start do better in terms of diversifying the economy. And that's what we're doing in Roanoke. For example, it used to be 30 years ago or so, I'm not sure of the figures, but Norfolk Southern had maybe 5,000 employees. Now they had 1,700, and if they lose 5, it's going to be down to 1,200 employees. Well, we're diversifying the economy to make up for the loss of, say, Norfolk Southern, and the loss of major advanced auto move people out as well. So we have to rely upon our homegrown industries, as well as bringing in bigger industries as well. We can't just rely upon major industries coming to our region, but we do have a fairly diverse economy. Healthcare is a huge part of our economic sector. It employs more people than any other single industry in our region. Crillian and HCA, Lewis Gale, combined, I don't have the exact figures, but they have more people working in the healthcare field than any other single market of the economy. And they're so important to our region. And that kind of segues into the Medicaid expansion.
Exactly.
There are $2 billion Virginia could draw down from the federal government to new Medicaid dollars to cover up to 400,000 people that are not now covered by Medicaid.
Is that money forever gone when the Commonwealth decides they aren't going to participate in expansion?
Well, we can say yes today. We said no last year.
Yes.
It's not going to happen this year, it appears. But it makes no sense. It's good for the economy of Virginia. Governor announced that we could bring in $105 million of new revenue to the Commonwealth to help our budget if we draw down the $2 billion. But not only that, the hospitals need the money.
Right.
They're being cut under the Affordable Care Act. There were some cuts with the understanding that the Medicaid expansion would make up the difference.
Right.
And that's, of course, if we don't expand Medicaid, they're still going to get the cuts. I was talking to the president of Crillian Health System just the other day about this, and they're scrambling for ways to make up the losses. Last year, the figures were the two major hospitals in our area, Crillian and HCA, would lose about $44 million this year if we don't do something. And so naturally they want us to expand Medicaid. Most people do if you look at it logically, just from an economic standpoint. But also you need to look at it from a humanitarian standpoint. Under the Affordable Care Act, you're entitled to a subsidy to buy private health insurance if you make the federal poverty level or above, 4 times above the federal poverty level. If you don't make as much as the federal poverty level, you're not entitled to the subsidy. Again, the theory was Medicaid expansion would cover these people. So if you make less than the federal poverty level, you can't get the subsidy, you can't afford private health insurance, and you don't qualify for Medicaid. Because if you're a single adult, you don't get Medicaid. People don't realize how limited Medicaid is, but if you can expand Medicaid to cover those people making less than the federal poverty level, as was originally intended, then these individuals, the poorest of our citizens, large number of them, maybe up to 40,000 people in my district potentially, could have Medicaid and have a home health care provider, have a physician that they can see from time to time for chronic problems, for annual checkups and the like. So what we're doing, and I said this on the floor of the Senate the other day, we're making the poorest of us in our community, in the Commonwealth, we're turning them into second-class citizens. They can't afford health insurance, they don't get the subsidy, and they don't qualify for Medicaid because we refuse to take our dollars that are in Washington, that Washington says we can have. But we said no. It makes no sense from an economic standpoint or from a humanitarian standpoint.
So these are federal tax dollars that citizens of the Commonwealth have sent to Washington
We've already sent it. We're continuing to send those dollars. Why not draw them down? It makes no sense.
Now talk to us about this initiative that the governor announced to cover at least those who have severe mental handicaps.
That's right, up to 20,000 citizens. It's a program he can do through the existing federal Medicaid waiver program. It's a program to draw down dollars for those that are severely mentally ill. There are probably 308,000 Virginians who are severely mentally ill. There are about 54,000 of those that have no insurance at all. And under this program, he can cover up to about 20,000 of these people. Now, those that are severely mentally ill typically have other health problems, physical health problems, and they live, the studies show, about 20 years shorter lives than other people. And these are the people that really need to have a health home. And if we expanded Medicaid, of course, they could be covered. But what the governor's done is found another way through the existing Medicaid program that's already authorized using as I say, programs already in place to cover about 20,000 of these people. And it's particularly important in the rural areas. The studies show the people in the rural areas do not have as good a health care. For example, Wise County, the people in Southwest Virginia live 9 years shorter lives on average than, say, Fairfax County. I mean, there's a disparity in this country, but also in Virginia, between those who live in the wealthier areas and as opposed to those who live in the poorer areas of Virginia, and typically in many of the rural areas, they're quite poor. And so what the governor's trying to do, and I applaud him for doing this, is to find a way at least to cover some of these people.
Sticking to the care of those who may be physically or mentally handicapped, I recall a settlement with the Department of Justice a couple of years ago that dealt with our training centers, and I think one of them has been closed. What's going on with that?
Well, that's a good question. I've been fighting to keep the training centers open. Some of these families have loved ones who've been in the training centers for several decades.
These are adult children who have elderly parents.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like the Lynchburg, the Central Virginia Training Center in Lynchburg. I've been working with those families down in Galax, Southwest Virginia Training Center. These were set up by the Commonwealth many years ago to help those that are severely handicapped mentally, and they need sometimes physically as well. But the Commonwealth ought to continue providing and not shut them down. There's a movement by the Justice Department to shut down our training centers and put them into group homes. Well, sometimes group homes work very well, and I'm not against group homes, but I do know that some of these families would be very upset if their family members who've been there for several decades, in Lynchburg, for example, if that Central Virginia Training Center were shut down and they had to find a group home somewhere, and it's much more difficult for some of these people. It would be very, very hard for them to be moved and to live in a group home, because they're very happy where they are.
Absolutely. Circling back to education, K through 12, I guess the General Assembly has agreed with the governor to hold funding harmless, but there hasn't been an increase, especially for teachers, in a number of years.
Well, we're constantly having budget problems in Virginia since '08. It's coming back. Again, if sequestration wasn't there, it'd be a lot better. Or if we took Medicaid expansion money, it would help a lot. But given the situation, the governor has agreed to hold public school funding harmless and colleges and university funding harmless. I hope we can do that. I think both houses want to do that as well. We also need to give a raise to our civil servants, the state employees, and constitutional officers. I was talking to a group of sheriffs the other day. You know, a lot of these, their deputies aren't getting paid what they need to get paid. So across the board, we do need to do something to help those that serve us, our civil servants.
We talked about workforce development, but I want you to highlight the importance of the community colleges that are in your district.
We have given the community colleges the responsibility of providing workforce training programs, and they're doing really well. One of the things we've done to encourage students to go to the community colleges first and then go on to a four-year school after the community college is the CCAP program, the Community College Access Program. If you go to a community college and apply and get into the third, fourth year of college at Radford Tech or some other university, then you can get a reduction in your tuition.
I see.
And so the idea is to encourage people to go to the less expensive community colleges first, and then if they do that and they get in, take the right courses, make the grades and so forth, and go to the third and fourth year of college, then the tuition would be lower. So that's one of the things we're doing to try to make colleges more affordable and more accessible to more people. I've been pushing for years to try to reduce tuition. Tuition is entirely too high. We do not support our colleges, universities, like North Carolina. North Carolina's tuition is much lower because they provide, on a per capita basis, more funding to their colleges than we do. It's true West Virginia, South Carolina, many other states, the tuition is lower because they're supporting their colleges more than we have. We have the best system of higher education in the country compared to every school, every state in the country. Carolina, Michigan, California, and Virginia, the top four. Most people would agree. Ours is the best. And you know, in some ways we don't deserve it because we're not funding it the way we should. But they are great colleges, universities, partly because of the history. I mean, Virginia Tech, I just found out this morning, will be ranked, it'll be coming out in the papers, it'll be ranked 30th, in the top 30th of the research universities in the country, the top 30.
Great.
And they've been working on that for several years. That's tremendous. I mean, tech is a major driver in our economy, of course, but it's also a terrific university. And the corporate research center there to turn the research they're doing into commercial activity has been tremendous. UVA, of course, is a major flagship university. William & Mary, we have a lot of first-rate colleges and universities, and we should be very proud of it, and I think we are. But we're just very fortunate to live in Virginia with such a great system of higher education.
And as a veteran, you are very supportive of the way that the Commonwealth welcomes back our veterans. There are a lot coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan that can take advantage of our community college system. Talk to us about some of the programs.
Well, you know, when military personnel come back and go back into the civilian world, they have skills that are not recognized a lot of times. And we're trying to get the colleges and universities to recognize those skills that they have learned while in the military. We also have a program to encourage employers to hire veterans called the Virginia Values Veterans Program, the V3 program. As a veteran myself, I'm very supportive of providing opportunities for our veterans to get good jobs, to get good education. And there are too many homeless veterans. It's amazing. The other part of it is the Wounded Warrior Program. A lot of veterans come back who they won't show it, but they have wounds that are deep, PTSD and things of this nature. It takes a long time to get over these things. And so we need to support our veterans with educational programs, with job programs, with health care programs, and those that are homeless try to make sure they get jobs. I mean, it's a shame to have a veteran come back and can't find a home or a job, and so we need to do better in terms, and we're making a difference, trying to provide more opportunities for our veterans.
And I believe in this year's caboose budget, if you will, there's funding for 2 new veteran support centers in the state.
That's right. We have one in Roanoke, in Salem, called the Virginia Veterans Care Center. We have one near the McGuire VA Hospital south of Richmond, and we want to build one in the Hampton area in Northern Virginia. These are very important programs. I've carried the bill to create along with Toddy Puller, to create the Department of Veteran Services back about 10 years ago or more. About 10 years ago, I guess it was. And the department has done a great job. And we also now have a cemetery in Dublin, the first veteran cemetery that the Commonwealth operates in Western Virginia. So we've improved services to veterans over the years, and I'm very proud of that.
Talk to us a little bit about human trafficking, because I know you have some legislation in on that. You're a former prosecutor. I don't know that people understand how serious a problem it is.
Human trafficking is something that's become, people become more aware of internationally as well as in this country in recent years. What happens is often homeless, but young people who have no family connection, they have no resources, they're being promised jobs, and the jobs don't pan out. They're being trapped into a form of human bondage. It's a form of human slavery, 21st century slavery that's happening throughout the world, but it happens in Virginia. I got involved in it a year or so ago when one of the local police officers of Roanoke County stopped a van. And she could tell the people in there seemed scared, but they said they were there voluntarily, so she couldn't do anything about it in terms of apprehending the people running the van. And it turned out that same van was found in Florida, and they were arrested because they were hauling these young people to northeastern United States, Pennsylvania or New Jersey or somewhere, keeping them in both labor bondage and sex bondage. That was what was happening. And these kids couldn't get out. They were promised something. It was a form of fraud. They were promised something that was never delivered. They weren't given their dollars, their money that they were supposed to be earning. They were trapped into a form of bondage that they just couldn't escape from. So I've had a bill last year that passed the Senate, was held up in the House. My bill has now been rolled into a bill that Senator Obenshain carries. We've been working together on this, and it has passed the Senate. I'm hoping it will now pass the House this year. So human trafficking is a very serious problem that these typically young people with no family connections, often no resources, and they're trapped into a form of bondage, which is really intolerable. That should never happen in a civilized society.
So your bill would give prosecutors, local prosecutors, another tool to pursue these.
And a tool that they don't really have. Some people think the abduction statute covers it. It really doesn't, because abduction is typically, they know they're being abducted when it happens. These people are being trapped into a form of fraud. They're being promised something, and it's not until later they realize they got taken. And so you need to have a new prosecutorial tool with a new statute, and also resources to help these victims who have been trapped into this form of bondage.
30 seconds left. Ethics reform, what's likely to happen?
We're going to do something. The public demands it, and the public's right. We're going to set up a commission that has some more authority. We're going to put a limit, a hard limit on either $100 or $250 for any kind of gifts, whether it be dinners and transportation or whatever. I think we'll do something this year.
Great. Thanks for being with us, Senator John Edwards.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications, connecting Virginians to their government. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.
Mm-hmm.